All righty. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I see there's still a few people popping in, so we'll see how this goes. As I was saying a second ago, we're down to the hardcore ST math lovers and math lovers in general. So this is a rarefied group. I want to thank our two panelists, Jerry Gargus and Dave Sawtelle, for agreeing to share their experience implementing ST Math. I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves, but I will say Jerry is here in Southern California in Orange County, and Dave Sawtelle is in Colorado. And for those of you who might have seen an early version of the schedule, unfortunately, Lisa Dugan got called, like is happening to everyone, got called into the classroom to sub today. And so that's a partner in Long Beach, but fortunately, Dave agreed to step in and share his experience, many years of experience managing ST Math implementation in Colorado Springs. So why don't you guys just take a second, introduce who you are, your title, and what your role was in the ST Math implementation. Jerry, do you want to go first, and then we can?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you. First, I want to thank you guys for inviting us to be a part today here in Fountain Valley. We're pretty close neighbors to the headquarters for Mind Research and have had a long-standing partnership. So I've actually worked with ST since my first year as an elementary principal back in 2006, 2007, when we launched ST Math in a computer lab, one of those archaic concepts at our elementary school. Subsequently, have served in just about every capacity you can imagine. Now I'm our Director of Educational Services here in Fountain Valley, and really my role is to support our implementation of ST and help us, continue to drive our test scores and our students' love of math, both simultaneously to even higher levels.
Great, thanks, Jerry. Dave, you want to give us a little bit of background?
So my experience with ST Math started back in 2011 when I was the K-12 math content specialist in Colorado Springs School District 11. And it was only in this past June where I left the district and handed all those responsibilities off to a young, energetic young man. I took a few months off, and in January, I started a new job here at Mind Research Institute as an interactive curriculum designer.
Great. So why don't we just start off, take a minute, give us a short story, like one of your favorite stories about ST Math in your time. And I know it's a lot of years, so if you want to squeeze in two, that's okay. Dave, you want to go first?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of great stories, and almost all of them for me involve helping students and or teachers overcome some sense of hurdle or obstacle with ST Math. One of my favorites was I got a call one day from a grade 4 gifted and talented instructor, magnet instructor, wondering if I could help a group of his students who had become stuck on a challenge game. Now, this was a little bit of a surprise for me because of all of our cohorts of teachers in my school district, the gifted and talented teachers tended to be more persistently skeptical about the value of ST Math for GT students. Generally, our GT students were kind of left to their own devices with ST Math, and so when they were able to speed through the content, it was not necessarily perceived as being valuable. And then on the other hand, when they encountered difficulties, that was also perceived as not being a very positive experience. So I was eager to step into the situation and try to maybe make some positive ground in the GT community, because word spreads. So I learned that the challenge game in question is Big Seed, and that's if you're not familiar with it, it's a marvelous game where there are colored tiles that get reflected over 8 different axes of symmetry to fill empty cells. And this was back in the day. So I got a lot of back in the day stories, as I'm sure Jerry does as well. So this was back in the day before there was the ability in Big C to preview what the effect or consequence of your move was going to be. So we didn't have touch, and there wasn't that, kind of foreshadowing of the move that there exists now. So, and I think also at that time, it was, you had 3 GG lives in that. And so if you muffed up on game or puzzle 8 or 9 out of 10 puzzles, you went back and started the level all over again. And so these kids were getting really kind of frustrated with that because they weren't able to recall what they had done in a series of puzzles to the place where they struck out. So I got there, I listened to their frustration and, established that I was an empathetic character and curious about what was happening. And so I kind of wondered aloud if they had been making any efforts to record what it was that they were doing in the puzzle. And so we got to playing the puzzles, and I worked with them to invent a symbology and a notation convention where we could record our moves. And so that alleviated the frustration of getting along in a ways and then not being able to recall what we had done. And it also increased the engagement. It enabled us to do some more pattern seeking. And it gave me the chance to give students a really authentic, an unusual, authentic mathematical experience of understanding the power of a robust symbology and a robust notation, which I didn't learn until I was at least a college student, if not a postgraduate. And it also gave me a chance to model for the math instructor how he might be able to interact with ST Math as an inquiry opportunity rather than just a answer seeking, answer giving endeavor. So that's one of my more favorite stories.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for inventing puzzle talks way before we instituted them as an organization. So I will say, just a little plug, if you don't know, Big Seed is available as a standalone iPad app for free. It's super fun. Kids love it. And it is one of our oldest games, and the early version of it, Dave, was even worse because it was one long sequence of puzzles. So in other words, there was like whatever it was, 100 puzzles, and you'd get to puzzle 20. And when you failed, then you started back at the very beginning again. And it was also used in my, I'm not going to say who did it for those of you that might, it was used in my job interview as a little test of my spatial temporal skills. So I'll leave it at that. Jerry, do you want to share kind of a favorite story about ST Math?
Well, I'm excited that I've never had to do a job interview where anybody ever evaluated my spatial temporal skill, because I probably would not have to be wearing a tie right now. I probably would be in a different location. But yeah, I've got my favorite story of the use of ST Math was last summer for us. As our director of services, I'm responsible for our summer school programs, and that's something I've done previously in other districts. So I got a lot of experience. This is not fake gray hair either, with summer school and trying to build effective summer schools. And obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic. Kids have been in class, some haven't been in class much. We're trying like all these different variables that should lead to maybe not the greatest summer school experience. And I'd never come out of a summer school program where I thought, wow, we really nailed it until this past summer. And I got to tell you, a huge part of that was ST immersion and being able to implement ST Math immersion program over the summer. And I don't know if everybody's familiar with it, but it's basically about a 6-week, and Karen, jump in because you could speak to it much more eloquently than I can. All we did was use it. But a 6-week program intended to be used in summer school settings. We use it at all of our elementary grade levels. It was about this same time last year that I was having an annual update meeting with Karen, and she said, well, by the way, we've got this that we're working on. And I'm like, yes. I need to see it. I want to hear about it. I want to know about it. I need to bring our math specialists in because I'm not the greatest mathematician in the history of the planet. There's some other guys ahead of me, like everyone. But it was a great opportunity for us to utilize a resource that I didn't know it was out there, and it wasn't. And I was initially hesitant because I was like, I don't want kids coming into summer of 2021, coming to summer school in person, and then being on technology for their whole math module, because that was kind of my initial thought was, I don't know if I'm really like, I want to know about it, but yeah, I'm hesitant because they've been technology to death all year long in the 2021 school year. And I don't know if it's the best path. It was the absolute best path we possibly could have gone. The curriculum that ST put together was so engaging and so awesome. They worked with our elementary math TOSAs to customize it for our 18-day program, because it's really, I think, designed to be 6 weeks, 5 days a week. So I think it's a 30-day program. And we trimmed it down and tailored it to fit our exact needs by working with Karen, our math TOSAs. They packaged everything, put all of the resources together. Yes, there is GG's fingerprints all over the program. But what I thought was just awesome was the pedagogy of mathematical thinking that was present across all the different aspects. It's very center-based, and we just had a great experience. I'm going to share, if it's okay, a few pictures, and I wish I had teachers ready to go to speak to this, but let me do this, and here we go. Hopefully everybody can see some photos from our visit. Great. So, I mean, this is like the holy grail of math instruction in my mind. We had class sizes of about 20 kids, and we had a teacher and an instructional aide in each classroom, and you can see just sitting on the floor doing the gaming components of ST. There's some awesome hands-on learning activities that were kind of framed as games that we're sneaking learning in all over the place with it. It was not too gamey. It was way more learning. And you just see our kids working directly with teachers, small groups. You see Todd Kubota, one of our excellent teachers here, working in small group, using ST, explaining, doing a puzzle talk with students, and just this small group instructional model was great. They basically worked from center to center. We dedicated, oops, that's the second page. We dedicated a ton of time, basically an hour and 45 minutes for math each day in our 4-hour summer school program. You could see the use of manipulatives. That's one of our instructional aids up there in the top left-hand corner. And just, it was just an awesome resource. Needless to say, we've already asked about utilizing it for this summer coming up, but I can't not share this. It's great when it looks good and it looks like the holy grail of teaching and learning, but I really, as a director, I'm responsible for making sure that that the rubber meets the road, right? I mean, we have to see results from what we put in front of kids and what we ask our teachers to do. And just to give you an idea, there's a pre-post test element of ST. At the beginning, the teachers, after the first session, were like, oh, we did the ST and our kids we did the pre-test and they died on the pre-test. I said, well, first off, they didn't die. Okay, we have all of our kids are still living. They're coming back. Let's dial it back a notch. But at the post-test, these were the outcomes. In kindergarten, the average increase in percentage points from pre-test to post-test was an increase of 40 percentage points. First grade, it was 31 percentage points. Second grade, it was 24 percentage points. Third grade, 35. Fourth grade, 32. And fifth grade, 37 percentage points pre to post over 18 days of instruction. 2 of those days were assessment. So we're talking about 16 days of instruction. I don't need to know anything else. Like it worked. Like it worked. It looked right. And when it looks right, you know you're going to get an outcome, a great outcome. I always say, if you do the right things, the right amount of time, and do it with passion and engagement, you're going to get a great outcome. All those scores take care of themselves, no matter what the assessment is. And we saw it. Our teachers loved it. I have to thank the ST team, because we even came out and did a site visit with the curriculum developers. They sat for like an hour and a half with our teachers after summer school released one day. We learned from them, they learned from us, and I think that it was just, it was an awesome experience. And there's no way I would even consider doing anything else for elementary summer school program other than ST immersion for the rest of my career. And I got a few years left. Don't let the gray hair fool you too much on the other side either. So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Thanks, Jerry. And I didn't introduce myself, but I've been, I'm the regional vice president for the Western, or manage our partnerships for the Western US. And I've been with mine for almost 17 years now. So it's exciting. So if you're not familiar, we take a long time to develop curricula, and we constantly refine them. So ST Math has been around, for more than 20 years. Immersion's a relatively new offering, but it's been in development for a long time, and we're, as Jerry's talking about, we constantly refining it. We also spent a long time building pre-K and TK curriculum. If you're not familiar, some people just don't know that we did that work. That's a core curriculum. We also have a new middle school gateway curriculum, which is an intervention version. We have a middle school supplement. So we have a lot more to offer now than just ST Math, and we're currently putting our same approach and our same effort into developing a core curriculum. So that's something you'll hear more about in the future too. So I wonder if you both would be willing to talk a little bit about how your districts used ST Math, and did it change during the pandemic? I think that's pretty interesting. And I'm going to also, one of our attendees posted prior to this session, what changed, let's say, in year one, and I know it's a while ago, but in year one versus future years of implementation. So maybe kind of weave that in a little bit too. So did things change? Like, how did you actually use it? How are you using it during pandemic? And man, did use change in sort of future years? Dave, you want to go first?
We brought ST Math into the district as a supplement that served the function that other curricular components didn't do either at all or as well. And that is with regard to developing conceptual understanding without a language-rich threshold for students to step over. So, like most, I don't think it's unusual, I conceptualize that curricular approach as like a three-legged table, a balanced approach for the core program. We did conceptual understanding okay, mostly through multiple representations. Was really at its best with establishing or supporting the establishment of knowledge and procedural skills, and then did kind of a mediocre job with problem solving transferred to previously unpracticed situations. So we had another supplement that did a really excellent job of problem solving, transferring to situations. What we didn't have was a product or a support for more robust conceptual understanding development. And so when I discovered ST Math, and through Eric, we crossed paths at a conference, it was like a game changer for me. I'd never seen anything quite like it. And so we brought it in to serve that role, kind of that third leg of our three-legged table, if you will. Now, pre-pandemic, in our implementation, a message about the individual student experience got skewed or overplayed. And so we had a misconception that became very difficult to try to overcome in the district, that it was a thing for kids to do by themselves. And it was really a one-on-one experience. And so that informed a lot of the early and persistent implementation, which became really difficult to disrupt and displace. We also had a predisposition of having the sessions in computer labs. So stop, drop, everybody go to the lab, as opposed to setting up a station rotation within the classroom. And that largely had to do with a very prevalent instructional model within our district that was really oriented, very teacher-centric as far as direct instruction, a practice session, all teacher guided and so forth. In the pandemic, it has become much more student self-guided, and we didn't have an infrastructure in place for a students weren't familiar with doing that, and so that really created an impact on our implementation. Most recently, in the last year or so, and as is the case in many districts, we have many concerns about the amount of teacher-guided interactive instruction that has been missing. And so there is, again, a swing to really want to maximize time with teacher-guided interactive instruction. And so now students are largely determining their own ST Math schedule, sometimes within the school day and sometimes as extended learning outside of the school day.
Got it. Thanks, Dave. And if anyone wants to ask a clarifying question or a follow-up, please feel free to put it in the chat, or we're a pretty small group. You can also unmute. Jerry, do you want to share a little bit about how you guys use ST Math and how it might have shifted as implementations mature, or even, during the pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because like literally Dave mentioned get them to the computer lab, and I was in the Jurassic era of ST implementation at my elementary school as a principal, where it was literally making sure we hit that 90-minute per week target come hell or high water. We're doing that because I know what's going to happen on the back end is our scores are going to go up, and that was a program improvement school, and we had to do those type of things. And on top of that, it was the pedagogy of having us changing the conversation in math at a school from being about computation and memorization and just like the way that I was tortured as an elementary student back in the 70s to the idea of, hey, let's think about math and let's talk about math. And I think that ST is a great first step into that conversation about how do we change math instruction in our classrooms. Obviously now most districts or many districts are implementing CGI pedagogy, and ST just so tightly complements that, where if the kids are thinking about math and then throw the CGI component of that on to talking about how you're thinking about math and just building to it. And yes, there's still that independence of progressing through modules and charting where our kids are and what's their completion rates and all those pieces like that, because we know that ties nicely with outcomes on high stakes tests and things like that. But I think that the best implementations are now when the teachers are doing puzzle talks and using that as a part of their numbers talk and their daily math warm up and their 5-step CGI lesson plan and integrating it into classroom instruction, and then of course using it to facilitate small group instruction, as we were kind of seeing in some of the pictures from our summer school program. And yeah, we're going to have those kids that blow through by October. They're done with the entire grade level of content and the challenges and anything else that we throw at them. That's great. They're always going to do that, but it lets us really in some ways focus in on helping the students that have those 27 puzzle tries, like perhaps maybe one of my kids at some point did that, I'm sure, and helping them navigate past that, and the small group being able to small group setting, being able to even dial into where kids are and meet them where they are and help them move beyond that. Pandemic wise, when we all ran into the March 13th wall or whatever that was back in 2020, I remember our superintendent saying, you need to go home and you need to come up with something for our kids to do next week for our district. And it started here, and then putting some things together. And the easiest first thing for math was, let's get you some ST Math time, right? I mean, that was the first building block. And then we scaled out to having our TOSAs do another couple weeks of building those modules for our kids, and then pass that out to our teacher team. So at no time did we really want to have any person in that in pandemic, that first that March to June, we didn't want to have any person going up a hill by themselves, so to speak. We wanted to have our teaching teams building grade level lesson plans for for their entire school. So each of our schools was doing that. We're pushing that content out. And I can tell you that ST was a critical component of those lesson plans at the elementary level, just making sure they still had that that experience. Because we didn't know how, I mean, we now look back and say, yeah, we've been dealing with this nonsense for what, 24 months. But, you know, when we shut down in March, we were like, oh, we'll be back in April, we'll be all right. We just need to get through a month. And then it was like, okay, this might be a little bit longer. Let's get through May. And then it was like, okay, we'll see y'all next fall. And we're probably going to do things a lot different next fall. So I think trusting our teachers to utilize the instructional tools that they had on hand, and they had multitudes of, we had so many people throwing free stuff at us for that first part of the pandemic. We didn't even have a chance to vet any of it other than, hey, here was our vetting. A lot of people are using XYZ, whatever it was. We'll make sure we get it for them. It's free for the rest of the year, except for not really. And then we'll see what we're going to do going into 22 or into 2021. Well, look, I think of ST as a constant through that, because we weren't wavering off of using ST Math and to support our elementary math program. I kind of really feel like I like the term signature practice, and when I use that, it's something that I think that when we go into any elementary classroom, we should see evidence of whatever that signature practice is in use on a daily or near daily basis. And I would say at our elementary levels, ST is definitely that. And then we in the classroom as well as beyond the classroom. That's a nice thing that's kind of evolved since the days since Jurassic era, when they had to get to a certain room on campus, to now, you know, we can look at our times of use and see that kids are using ST Math from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock on a Friday night and saying, maybe we need to talk to our parents about bedtimes. And maybe kids might need some sleep. But I think that that's been the evolution. Is it's this last 24 months has been insane, but in some ways it's really helped us expand the boundaries of education in meaningful ways other than homework, because we know what the research is on homework, in meaningful ways beyond the confines of the 6-hour school day. And when we think about every single education reform that's come through, the two things that have been a constant are 180 days and 6-hour school days. So pandemic has really kind of pushed us outside of that, where kids can do some work and do meaningful work and learn. And we understand that we have to support kids learning outside of, you know, bell to bell. Bell to bell used to be what we talked about. We're gonna be great bell to bell, not in 21, 22. We better be really darn good outside of bell to bell. So I think ST helps with that piece as well.
Thanks, Jerry. I really appreciate that phrase, you know, like having meaningful or, you know, expanding in meaningful ways outside of the 6 hours. Follow-up question for you on the teacher side. You mentioned the small groups during the immersion in summer. Jerry, do you see that like were all of your teachers already using small group instruction, or did you find that the teachers who used immersion in summer, where this curriculum kind of revolved around that type of teaching, are now like more comfortable or transitioning some of those practices into the regular school year?
So summer was kind of exciting for staffing because we had a lot of teachers last spring that completely understandable. By June of 2021,
yeah,
you know, our teachers were spent. They had given like everything they had, and we had a lot of teachers that normally might have taught summer school that just didn't. So we were scrambling. We were literally scrambling, and we were hiring people that had been our intervention teachers. And we even had to just go to our substitute pool to hire teachers to teach summer school. And what I'll say is that was in some ways a great opportunity for us, because we got to really build the pedagogy for summer school and say, this is what we really want to see. And Karen and her team came in and did some amazing work with us on professional development for our teachers. We had an entire day dedicated to professional development just for summer school, which I know pretty much everybody does, but to have ST come in and say, hey, here's all these components, here's how we developed them, here's the thinking behind it. It just was very powerful. So when I didn't know what we were going to see. I was like, will we see these centers and all this, or will we have teachers that revert back to how they teach math during the school year, and not take advantage of the fact that they have, 10 less kids in their classroom and things like that. Now, it was great. I think that was really what helped us see the pedagogy that we want to see in all classrooms every day. Really, in the summer program was the structure and the resources that we put together from the program.
Thanks. Dave, I'm wondering, you mentioned some of the reasons why you guys made the decision to bring in ST Math and, with the focus on conceptual understanding. So what did you see? Do you want to expand or share any other evidence that you saw for improvements or results? They could be based on test scores, or it could be other things that you saw changes.
Sure. So our big test score story was we began in 2011.
Dave, I'm gonna stop you. I don't know if there's anything that you're doing. So your audio, I don't know if it's for everybody, but your audio all of a sudden is really quiet. And last time it started quiet and then it returned to normal. So I don't know if there's anything you can do on your end, or it may be an auto setting but anyway, just if there is something, be aware.
Okay. I'll speak up and let you know if that is helpful. So in 2011, 2012, we began our implementation. About 3 semesters after that, we had a state test administration. Compared to previous years' administrations, we saw a 2% increase in our aggregate 3 through 5 math scores. And to perturb the state test by 2% is unheard of. And we did statistical analysis and tried to control for various things. And what we found was there was no other explanation other than ST Math, the implementation of ST Math. There was no other causal or possible causal influences. After that, Colorado made some significant shifts in its state assessment model. We became a park state. Those of you who became a park state or some other different sort of test, the difficulty went up, the scores universally went down, and it became very, very challenging for us to continue to track longitudinally. And I think that had a bit of a negative impact on our enthusiasm as a system for the implementation. But beyond the test scores, I certainly have had my share of positive stories from teachers, students, and parents about the enjoyments and benefits that students have had in experiencing ST Math. And I'll go specifically to the places where before we were talking a lot, or as much as we are now, about equity, or as much as we are now about personalization, the ways in which ST Math increased opportunity and access for students who potentially were not accessing the content because they were an identified special education population or an English language learner, or they were just simply moving in the curriculum to an abstract symbolic level or representation quicker than they were ready for. Mm-hmm. And ST Math gave them access and opportunity for learning and being successful because they were still being supported with a virtual, concrete, manipulative, and the pictorial modes. And at the same time, they were getting plenty of the abstract symbolic in their core, if you will, their core instruction. So I think that's one of the places that I would point to beyond test scores is giving a more accessible playing field, if you will, access point, opportunities for success for students who are not as successful with the abstract symbolic, or not ready for it as quickly as it sometimes comes, or with the language intensive aspect of some math instruction.
Great. Thanks, Dave. With probably will be basically our last question. I'm wondering if you would both be willing to share something like a pro tip for sustainability. And really, I think you can think about ST Math because you both have experience with longstanding implementations of ST Math. But if there's, I encourage you to think larger. I mean, for a program to really make a long-term difference with a lot of kids and teachers to learn to implement well and all that, we want to keep them in place. So any guidance you can share with people about keeping an ST Math implementation healthy over the long term, or other implementations healthy over the long term. Jared, you want to go first?
Sure, I'd be happy to go first, because I think that first off, thank you, Dave, because you kind of framed some thoughts for me on that question anyway. And I just think back to, like, what is it that we really see from ST? And this is, I think, what helps with sustainability is we see it deepening our students' conceptual knowledge about math. And I'll show data to kind of reflect that in a minute. I see, and I always saw this at the classroom level when I was a principal, and just higher levels of self-efficacy amongst students as it pertains to mathematics, which is a hard thing to build. But because of the gaming component and seeing students succeed and progress, I think that what helps with the deepening of the implementation is that students have higher levels of self-efficacy around math, and they enjoy learning math using gaming. I mean, I have a 14-year-old son at home, and if I can get him off of a computer gaming, it's a miracle. I have to throw a basketball, food, a bicycle, and a beach at him to get him to do anything other than gaming. So I think that we have to tap into that. And then I think those two things come together to help with the student achievement piece that we're always looking to have. We have to have that element there. So I'm going to share a couple things with you, I hope. And I just, hopefully I can get these open here really quickly. This graphic is our district's math scores during the last 5 years of CASP testing, coincided with deepening our implementation of ST Math, but also complementing that was a lot of CGI instruction with our coaching and training with our teachers. And I can tell you that 14% growth in CASP testing over a 5-year period, that's the most of any high performing district in Orange County. And it's second in Orange County. That 77% proficiency rate is second in Orange County. But I think that's only a piece of the story. I'm going to stop sharing that really quick. And I want to share two other slides with you, because I think this is what's really, really important when we talk about equity and access. When we look at how our low-income students did over that time period, we see this 17% growth. Now, 64% of low-income students meeting or exceeding standards on Smarter Balance is not the 100% that we all want, but it's also not the 47% where we started. And here's the last one of these that I'll share, because I think that this is the biggest challenge for us when it comes to math, in my opinion, is, sorry, one more quick share. Our English learners. And this is the most challenging. I think ST Math is very effective at supporting our English learners' development of the love of math and also their conceptual understanding. And yeah, that's 4% increase over that time period. It's not what we want, but I think that when we look at a slide like this, what it doesn't, the story it doesn't tell is what happens to students that reclassify during, this is a part of the EL story. And the full EL story, I'm wide. I'm going to show you one more, and then I'll stop. Here's the full EL story, because that's our RFEPs. So when you look at the kids that reclass, you have to look at both of those groups together. And when you see that we have just a shade under 90%, and I happen to know that that was 89.4, and if it was 89.5, I was rounding. But I can tell you that. But I think when you see results like that, and it's a byproduct, not just of one thing in isolation, nothing is, it's so hard to say it's attributable to this thing, but it is certainly very, very logical to be able to say it's attributable to these things: well-trained teachers, effective technology, pedagogy of CGI, all these things coming together in a systematic way. And those were sustained implementation. So you asked me what I think are keys. That was a really long answer. I'm sorry, I blow up time frames. I don't know how long I have, but I know I probably would have got kicked off the Oscars by now.
That's perfect, Barry.
Partner with the team at ST. Our principals have been there for our principal launch meetings at the beginning of the year, just because we want that on their mind. We've had ST out to work with our school sites that work closely in professional development with the ST team, get the greatest implementation. They get the biggest shift in pedagogy in the classroom, deepening of use of the talking of all the components, but really using it as puzzle talks and all those pieces. When you partner with ST and invest in training your teachers, and then keep hitting your principals with those monthly reports, because it keeps it on the front burner for them as they help sustain implementation. So I'll stop now, Dave. I'm sorry, I probably took up too much of your time with that one.
Thank you, Jerry. Very impressive sustained results. Dave, so with the last couple minutes we have, you get the last word. Any pro tips regarding sustainability for programs like ST Math?
I've got a depth of experience with dealing unsuccessful with failures. It's so easy to believe that you communicated sufficiently. It was so easy for me to believe that what I understood as being used for time was also generating also used for time. So that's somewhat to Jerry's point of view. Communicate, never done communicate. I've learned that there are ebbs and flows in the implementation. There's never any such thing as being done. There's never any such thing as, okay, now it's on its own. It's going to travel on its own. It requires ongoing fostering. We experienced that after the first few years, the shininess of going on, the understanding of the why, the personnel changes in administration and the teacher corps, that impacted the organization in the way and the original sense of commitment. So it's reiterating the messaging and the professional development, and I think that's much of what Jerry was doing.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate those comments, and we totally agree. I mean, it isn't, it is an ongoing process, and that's why we, call it a partnership, and it's good work, and it's it's important that our nonprofit has many long-term relationships with districts having successful implementations of ST Math. Well, thank you both for sharing. That wraps up this customer panel today. The final keynote is up next, I think, in 10 minutes. So thank you all, and I will see you there.